Just after the Chinese New Year, I took my pregnant wife to watch movies in the cinema. The old lady in the back seat was eating melon seeds and kicking the chairs, and her grandson even put her feet on my head. I can't stand it anymore, and friendly reminders them that this is a public place and that they should watch movies in a civilized manner. Unexpectedly, the old lady said, "I paid for it, I do whatever I want. I am poor and love to pretend. If you can't stand it, just book a room. Is it illegal for me to do this? If you can't stand it, call the police." My wife advised me to forget it. Unexpectedly, the old lady complained first, saying that I cheated her, and called the police. But she didn't expect that the person who received the call from the police was me. I sneered, took out my police certificate, and said to her, "Is there still a fuss? Are you satisfied now? I am a policeman, and I stayed on my post for half a month during the Chinese New Year. The leader only gave me a break today, it's fake." My wife saw the recent Heat movie and took me to watch it as soon as she was off. As soon as I arrived at the screening room, I found someone sitting in our seats. I took the movie ticket and checked the seat numbers again, 6 rows, 6 seats and 7 seats, that's right. But there was an old lady with curly hair sitting on the seat, carrying a child of 7 or 8 years old. I guess the elderly do not understand the rules of the cinema, so they walked up to the aunt with an angrily voice, "This seat seems to be mine. Please see if the information on the movie ticket is wrong." As I said that, I also brought the movie ticket to her to prove that I was not wrong. The old lady glanced at my wife and me, looked at us up and down, and the look made me frown. The old lady spoke disdainfully, "You said it was yours? Call her and see if she ignored you." I was stunned, and was a little overwhelmed by his words. My hand tightened my hand holding the movie ticket, pointed to the message on it and said word by word, "It is clearly written on the movie ticket. Please let me give it a minute." I kept a friendly smile, but it was actually already in my heart. The old lady snorted contemptuously from the tip of her nose, "So what? Now this position is mine." As she said that, the old lady snatched the movie tickets from my hand directly. Then, she took out 2 wrinkled movie tickets from her pocket and threw them on the ground. My hands were still hanging in the air, and the blue veins on my forehead kept leaping. I was so angry that I was laughed. It was obvious that I wanted to grab the position, and I was so confident. Looking at the 2 wrinkled movie tickets that the old lady threw on the ground, I clenched my fists. I repeated the words just now. I said, "This is my place, please get out of the way." But the old lady crossed her legs, took a bag of popcorn and handed it to the child next to her. "I'm going to sit here today. I bought a ticket, just sit wherever I want. You are not a policeman, you have to worry about it, got it?" I took a deep breath and suppressed my anger. It's so tiring for half a month to work. It's hard not to make people angry when they encounter such a thing when they watch a movie. I still spoke to the old lady in a nice voice, "Auntie, if you want to change seats, you can speak well. What's the matter with your attitude? I don't owe you anything. I finally took a vacation, but encountered such a thing, how can I hold back this cowardly?" Everyone goes home for the new year. I stayed at the unit to serve the people. Now it's finally my turn to accompany my family. I was embarrassed on the first day of the holiday. Who do I owe? As soon as I finished speaking, the old lady jumped up from the seat like she suddenly went crazy, pointing to my nose and began to output, "I have this attitude. If you have the ability, please call the police. I will tell you, my son is a policeman, you better not mess with me." She raised her tone and attracted everyone around her to look at us. I frowned and looked down at the grandparents and grandchildren. The old lady's grandson pushed me and said viciously, "I'm going to sit here. Why do you rob me of my position? My dad is a policeman, I want him to capture you. It hurts so much." He slapped his hand very hard. The law enforcement recorder was installed in his pocket on his waist, which happened to be on my waist, causing me to burst out with pain. The child's hand had just grabbed the popcorn, and the food was still stained with residue, which made my clothes full of them. I was very upset, and some passers-by around me couldn't stand it anymore, and they all scolded the old lady, "Why are you relying on your seniority here? Why are you occupying someone else's position? Do you have no position?" The old lady put her hands on her hips and retorted without hesitation, "I just like the 6th row, number 6. Do you have any control? If you have the ability, just beat me. I don't think I'll ruin you." I patted the popcorn residue on my body, took a deep breath, and was about to speak when my wife stopped me. My wife is 7 months pregnant. She squatted down with a big belly and picked up the movie ticket that the old lady threw on the ground. I quickly supported her. The movie is about to begin, and only the big screen is left with some light. My wife looked at the 2 wrinkled movie tickets under the light of the screen. She turned her head and showed a gentle smile at me, took my arm, and said to me, "Forget it, my dear." Her words passed through my brain and immediately calmed me down. The words happiness and concession appear in my brain. My wife is still by my side, so I don't need to argue with others over these trivial matters. It was during the Spring Festival that every cinema was full, and there were more and more people around. It was not a solution to keep it here. I glared at the old lady. She looked successful, and showed a treacherous smile at me, and her grandson also stuck out his tongue to make faces with me. I helped my wife walk to the 5th row. As soon as I sat down, a message came from my phone, which was a penalty notice sent by the director. "Captain Jiang, the auxiliary policeman named Yang Yiba in your team openly disobeyed the order, and the order for dismissal from the superior has been released." Seeing the word dismissal, I was slightly stunned for a moment. Originally, I was not on duty during the Spring Festival. According to the schedule, the auxiliary policeman named Yang Yiba was on duty. He was also punished for his personal reasons. This time, the duty was the opportunity one asked him to make up for his merits. But I didn't expect that he would openly disobey the order. In order not to make things worse, I worked for him for half a month, but in the end I didn't hide it. I thought there would be a punishment, but I didn't expect that I would be sentenced to be dismissed directly. I quickly pleaded for him, "Director, it's not that serious." I helped him on duty, and nothing went wrong. I heard that this comrade had an old mother and a primary school son in his family. If he was dismissed, how difficult it would be for their family. The opposite side replied almost instantly, "I know you have a good heart, but this is the command from the superior. Forget it, I'm asking for mercy for you." I quickly thanked and sent several rose emoticons. My wife poked my arm and reminded me, "My dear, the movie is about to begin. Don't be busy with work anymore, please stay with me quickly." I turned off my phone, reached out and pinched my wife's face, and focused on watching movies with her. The children in the back seat were a little noisy, but I didn't want to cause more trouble. I thought occupying a seat was just an emergency, but I didn't expect that I still underestimated the shamelessness of a person. Not long after the movie started, a melon seed skin flew on my head. I patted my head and the melon seed shell fell on my leg. I looked back and saw that the cinema was very dark, so I could only think that someone accidentally got it to me, and didn't think much about it. But unexpectedly, the sound of cracking melon seeds gradually sounded again in the back seat, which was extremely noisy. Then a few melon seed skins fell from the sky, some hit the back of my head, and some fell into my collar. I quickly bent down and shook the melon seed shells in my collar, which were still covered with sticky saliva, which was very disgusting. "What's wrong?" My wife didn't understand, so she quickly asked me what happened. I shook my head and signaled that my wife was fine. Then I frowned and looked back. With the faint light, I saw the situation in the back seat clearly, and saw the old lady lying on the movie seat, cracking melon seeds. The cracked melon seed skin was thrown in the front row, which was above my head. The audience around were all uncomfortable by her sound of eating melon seeds, and they looked unhappy. I sighed in a long sigh. I can't afford to offend, can I still not hide? I turned my body sideways, pressed my wife tightly, and said that the old lady threw the melon seed skin. As long as I was a little bit more, the melon seed skin would not fall on my head. But this old lady was clearly coming for me. No matter how I hide, the melon seed shells can always fall accurately on my head. She is having a fight with me, right? As long as it is said that it is not intentional, who will believe it? I go to the left, and the melon seed shell goes to the left. I go to the right, and the melon seed skin goes to the right. This melon seed shell is like a tracker installed. I simply leaned over and stretched my head forward. I don't want her to shut up now and don't eat melon seeds, as long as the melon seed shell doesn't fall on my head. This move is surprisingly useful. It can't hit me on the head, so the old lady stopped eating it. Now I was 100% sure that she clearly felt sorry for me and threw the melon seed shell on my head. I just kept such a weird posture and watched the movie. In less than 10 minutes, something went wrong again in the back seat. Whenever there is a critical plot, the child in the back seat will kick the chair loudly. It's okay just to think about it, but the key is that he kicked the backrest of my chair. The cinema is just a seat, and when my backrest sways, our row will inevitably shake. My wife had morning sickness, and when she was kicked like this, her face became significantly worse. I unscrewed the cap of the thermos and poured a cup of hot water for my wife. "Wife, otherwise we won't watch this movie, so we will buy tickets again." The grandparents and grandchildren in the back seat obviously deliberately disgusted us. I lowered my voice and asked my wife for her opinion. My wife took a sip of water and shook her head again. "Now we are seeing the key. At this time, this row is full of people. It is inconvenient for me to go out, and it will definitely affect others. I sighed, turned my head and glared at the child fiercely. He seemed to be waiting for me to turn around. As soon as I turned around, he grimaced at me, and then kicked my chair even more unscrupulously. The movie was already full of tickets. When he kicked, many people turned around to observe the situation, and whispers came from around him. I turned my head and reminded me, "Auntie, can you tell your grandson not to kick my chair? Our row will be affected." The aunt cut it off and said disrespectfully, "I paid for it, I will do whatever I want. I am poor and love to pretend. If you can't stand it, just book a room. Is it illegal for me to do this? If you can't stand it, call the police." Seeing that the two grandparents and grandchildren did not eat the punishment, a vicious elder brother could not help but stand up directly. His bald head is extremely dazzling in the dark cinema, and the big gold chain around his neck is only seen by the gangster boss on TV. He pointed at the child in the back seat, his eyes showing fierce light. "Fuck you, kick the chair, I will break your legs." The grandparents and grandchildren in the back seat were obviously bullying the weak and afraid of the strong. After this sentence continued, they immediately stopped kicking the chair. I thought they should calm down this time, but I didn't expect them to hold up a big move for me.